All right. So thank you everybody for joining us on this late June afternoon or early June morning, depending on where you are, for this latest ReShare Open Community meeting. We've got a lot of good updates and a couple of um, stories from some implementers, some of our recent implementers. Like I said, we've got a really full agenda, so we are going to go ahead and jump into it. Letting everybody know that we are recording this meeting. So after this meeting, probably sometime tomorrow, we will get this up both on our Project ReShare YouTube page and we'll post an announcement on our Project ReShare website for anybody who's missing it or for anybody who was unable to attend today. So our agenda, um, we're gonna have Charlie Barlow, who is the Research Steering Committee convener, um, welcome us to this meeting and give a few updates about the project. We're going to hear a little bit about our newly formed Community Engagement Committee. We're going to hear a little bit about our comms and marketing committee. And then we've got two implementer updates from our two most recent implementers, Minitex and CAVAL. After those presentations, that's when we will do our Q&A. So please, if you have any questions after our presenters, please go ahead and hold on to them. You can go ahead and put them in chat so that we can save them or write them down personally, but we are going to hold all Q&A until the end of the meeting. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Charlie to kick us off.
Thanks so much, James. Welcome, everybody. And for those of you suffering from the heat today, I am right there with you, 95 degrees up here in New Hampshire. I've just got a couple of updates for us all before we hear from our two implementer stories and some other folks from the steering committee. But I did want to share that our election for our next incoming steering committee members has recently concluded. We'll be making a broader announcement on our various listservs to welcome a couple of new folks to the steering committee table. With that too, we are saying farewell from the steering committee table to two of our esteemed colleagues, Ginny Boyer, who served alongside me as co-chair for the past year, and Kristen Calvert, who has served as our fearless treasurer. So thank you both to Ginny and to Kristen for all of their work and leadership of the steering committee for many years. I'm also very pleased to share that we have officially welcomed the IDS project as our newest member of the ReShare community. So you may well see folks from IDS here with us today and at meetings in the future. And then finally, I wish I was going, but I'm not. But please do come by and say hello to folks from the ReShare community at ALA on Sunday at noon at the bar at the Sofitel Hotel. If you can go to the next slide for me, please. This wouldn't be a community meeting if I didn't make an ask for resources to invest in our wonderful project. I, would be remiss not to recognize and acknowledge the financial pressures that many of us, particularly in the United States, with various federal actions are likely navigating. But every contribution, large or small, really does make a big difference to our ability to work together here at ReShare. There's a few things that we have on the fundraising docket for the year ahead that I wanted to call attention to. One is our ongoing campaign to generate sufficient recurring support in order to sustain a central staff person to provide coordination and support of the ReShare community. The second is our ongoing ReShare Digital campaign that reflects many of your values and priorities and the needs of your users. The third, invoices either are or soon will be going out for membership for the coming year. This is a great time if you do have additional funds available to invest in ReShare to elevate your membership to either the champion or catalyst level to help have a bigger say and bigger stake in shaping our strategy and work. Also, finally, for our consortial members, There's a great opportunity here for your own individual member libraries to consider joining at the allied membership level. This gives you all another seat at the table in influencing development priorities and being apprised of all things ReShare. So if you have the capacity to consider making an investment in ReShare in the year ahead, please either reach out to me or to the general info at Project ReShare email address. And I think with that, I'm turning the floor over to Gerri and Boaz. Thanks, everyone.
Hi, everybody. My name is Gerri Moeller, and I am here on behalf of the newly created ReShare Community Engagement Committee. We are looking for a few good members. You do not have to have any specific knowledge of ReShare. The only requirement is that you're a staff member of a Project ReShare member organization. The Member Engagement Committee will meet at least monthly and may meet more frequently during periods of high activities, such as during the steering committee election cycle. The committee is charged with recruiting individuals for the various ReShare groups and committees, scheduling community update meetings, running steering committee elections, and community assessment and reporting. Now is a great time to volunteer and get in on the ground floor. If you are thinking about volunteering but aren't quite sure, please feel free to reach out to myself or to James Robinson, and we'd be very happy to talk to you more about the time commitment and the responsibilities for this position. If you have questions, you can also put them in the chat and we will address those at the end of today's meeting. And now I'm going to turn things over to Boaz.
Hi, everybody. My name is Boaz. I'm in Lehigh University Library and a member of the steering committee and also the chair of the Communication Marketing Committee. We are responsible for the communication overall of the project with its members. We also think about our brand and how we have a presence in conferences and things like that. We try and be transparent as much as we can. And that's kind of what we think is a unique feature of our community in ReShare. As we know, there's a lot that we all do, but we really want to have some help. If you are interested in helping those things, communicating about ReShare, its value, the product strategy, things we're working on, marketing, and other things like that, consider joining us. If you're very skilled, that's awesome. If you're kind of just in the beginning stages or just curious about those things, we are happy to have you anyway. So please consider joining COMS, the Communication Marketing Committee, and we'd love to have you around. We meet once a week, usually on a Monday right now, and there is a little bit of extra work in between those meetings, kind of in terms of like preparing things and other things like that. So I will hand it now to James Robinson for the user stories part of the session today. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Charlie, for kicking us off. And thank you to Gerri and Boaz to talk about those volunteer opportunities. I think it can easily get lost in the shuffle because we're also proud of the ReShare software. But Project ReShare is so much more than just the code that gets written or the software that gets produced. And both of these committees are an absolutely great way, not just to get involved and to learn more about the project, learn more about the community, but to really shape it in the direction that you or your organization might want to see this project take. Again, what we do here is so much more than just the software. So these are really excellent opportunities if you want to start getting involved a little bit more in the project. And speaking of folks who are definitely involved in the project, we're going to hear from a couple of recent implementers from us. We've got folks both from Minitex and CAVAL to speak to us a little bit about what they have been working on. I'm going to start by introducing our colleagues from Minitex. Rachel Franklin is a resource sharing manager at Minitex, where she provides customer service support to libraries using ReShare and oversees the MinLink typing workflow, as well as the area responsible for processing all incoming materials. Kyle Triska works at Minitex and is an end user support specialist. He is one of the administrators for the MinLink system that will be talked about today. He is a liaison between Minitex's IT department and the resource sharing unit, working with both to help create the process described here today. And he is also the lead in the electronic delivery unit of Minitex, responsible for processing articles and copies. So today, Minitex is going to talk a little bit about their bib transfer setup. And I will stop sharing my screen and turn it over to Rachel and Kyle.
Thank you, James, for that wonderful introduction. I'll just wait for Kyle to bring up the presentation on your screen. And there it is. Hello, everyone. Today, Kyle and I are going to be walking you through the bib transfer process within the ReShare system. This is a collaborative project developed in partnership with Index Data. Go to the next screen. Thank you, Kyle. So what is Minitex resource sharing? Minitex serves as a referral center, functioning as both a borrower and a lender across multiple ILL systems, but we do not maintain a collection. Some of you might know another term of brokering. This is kind of what we are doing also. We also operate as a separate lender for the University of Minnesota on ReShare and Alma. We have staff responsible for retrieving materials from the collection. We use a centralized system called MIRA to manage all incoming interlibrary loan requests. MIRA isn't an acronym. It was named through staff input at Minitex, and while someone came up with the name, the original source remains a bit of a mystery. Some highlights of MIRA include extract and standardize requests from lender systems. Requests are printed only when an item is filled, so it's enabling a fully electronic workflow. It provides an audit trail for all requests. It also offers comprehensive borrowing and lending statistics. And then it updates requests in ReShare via the API.
Hi, everybody. So you heard about Minitex, but what is MinLink? MinLink is the Minnesota Interlibrary Loan Program that's run by Minitex. There are 23 ReShare tenants that make up MinLink. It's nearly all public libraries, but as you heard, we are also the University of Minnesota's lending arm, so the University of Minnesota is part of it, and several other regional academic libraries are part of it as well. The public libraries use 6 different ILS systems, and this will kind of come into play a little later on. We have several that are Cersei Dynas customers, which include Symphony and Horizon systems. We have 2 open source softwares that people use, which is Koha and Evergreen. And then we have a few libraries that are on innovative, including Polaris and Sierra.
Thank you, Kyle. So I'm going to talk about MinLink to MinLink requests. So many requests for items owned by MinLink locations would skip some or all MinLink libraries and come directly to Minitex. Why is this happening? It could be because issues with clustering. It could be because patrons are creating requests manually using the blank work form. And it could also be at Minitex, we do verify requests for additional formats or additions. And so once we do come up with a record that owns it, it could be that MinLink libraries own those. Since our previous ILO system did not support transferring requests directly to the lender, Minitex handled the process by placing the requests on behalf of the borrowing library, that brokering relationship that I mentioned in the introduction. Minitex IT staff collaborated with Index Data to develop the process known as bib transfer.
So you may have heard of that word clustering there. Just to explain the situation here. As you saw, our public libraries use many different ILS systems, and their cataloging can be inconsistent between those libraries. They aren't one big academic conglomerate that uses all the same standardized rules. So they do their own things, kind of. Public libraries also have a very high volume of AV materials. It's one of our top requested formats for the MinLink system. And these can have worse clustering due to the lack of standard identifiers like ISBN, ISSN. They have UPC sometimes, but I don't even know if that's considered when clustering records together. So when collections are ingested into ReShare, the titles can end up not clustering together. And I'll show an example of that in just a minute here. This can result in many records for the exact same item, but with different libraries listed as only each. So a library user can place a request on one record with one set of libraries. And then when that rota is exhausted, Minitex will step in as the lender of last resort. And that's a setting in ReShare that all of our tenants have turned on. So if the rota is exhausted, it comes to us no matter what, so that we can double check it. Here is an example of that clustering issue. I won't go into detail why these possibly didn't get matched together, but you can see here that there's two records for what seem to be the exact same thing. And the patron might pick this first one because it's the first in the list. So the normal rota for that first result would be processed. And then through this new bid transfer process, we would transfer the request to the second bid record. So here's a little in depth about how the bid transfer works. So once again, we receive the request as the lender of last resort. We then initiate the bid transfer process. So at that point, there are no more lenders in the rota. So we manually search for other records for the same item with different libraries listed. We then not supply the request using the transfer reason. That's one of the options in not supplying. And then we supply an alternate cluster or bib ID in the note field with this following notation, transfer to cluster, and then the actual bib or cluster ID. This results in the request being completed on the requester end, but we make sure no patron notice goes out. We don't want to get them confused about why the request is being canceled, but then it continues to be processed. And a new request is generated using those transferred cluster IDs. This cycle will continue and continue until the request is filled or we exhaust all similar clusters or bib IDs, whichever you want to call it. And this repeated cycle of transferring is done at Minitex through the API. So this allows us to automatically retry using multiple cluster IDs. And this can't really be done natively in ReShare. You can do everything else, but we handle the automatic referring over and over. So we only have to make a list of bib IDs once, and then it just keeps working for us. So it's kind of like we're building a rota or lending string of bib IDs rather than separate libraries. And here's a little graph of how it kind of works. So the patron places a request on an item. ReShare will then use the rota for that item. It'll check both libraries. Let's say they can't fill it for whatever reason, checked out. It automatically goes to Minitex as the lender of last resort. Staff at Minitex search for alternate bib IDs, alternate records that are exactly the same with more libraries. And then we transfer the request using the transfer not supply reason with the first bib ID that we've identified.
Thanks, Kyle. I'm going to talk about some workflow changes since implementing bib transfer. So Minitex is now prioritizing MinLink to MinLink requests to ensure all locations are exhausted before requesting items from non-MinLink locations. That is something that we were not doing prior to using bib transfer. With the implementation of bib transfer, once requests are filled, the transaction will always occur directly between the MinLink requesting library and the MinLink supplying library, which means there's less processing that Minitex has to do. We are no longer involved in those transactions. If the item becomes overdue or lost, the billing process will also be more efficient, as the transaction will be directly between the requesting and the supplying libraries, with Minitex no longer involved in that. Again, prior to that, we were acting as a borrower, so we would have to request a bill from the lender, send it on to the requesting library, then they would have to send it back to us. And this will just be a lot cleaner transaction. Filled material can be sent directly to the requesting library without the need for intervention from Minitex processing staff. We created this chart to illustrate, well, I should say Kyle created this chart to illustrate how our workflow has changed with the transition from BDX, the software that we were using, to using bib transfer for reshare requests. So the top is what we used to do with VDX, and the bottom is what we're doing for reshare. It compares previous roles as both borrower and lender in VDX with the new process. As you'll see, the updated workflow involves fewer steps for processing materials than before. You can see that on the screen there. So we wanted to highlight the number of bib transfers we did when we first went live. We went live in February, and we attempted to transfer 2,304 requests. Of those, 1,814 books, CDs, DVs were filled with direct lending with the bib transfer. And that represents about 20% of our total incoming requests from Midlink libraries. So that's a huge impact there.
And that's it. That's the bid transfer process that we have worked with Index Data, RIT, and resource sharing here at Minitex to develop. We just want to thank the ReShare community for inviting us, and to all of you for watching and listening. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Rachel. Thank you so much, Kyle, for sharing all that with us. That's a fascinating workflow that I'm sure our folks are going to have some questions about here in a little bit. But before we get to that, we have one more presentation. We have we have our colleague from CAVAL joining us. So, Sae Ra Germaine is the Deputy CEO of CAVAL, a Melbourne, Australia-based library consortium, where she applies 2 decades of expertise in resource sharing system and open source technology integration within libraries. She has held leadership roles in several organizations, including president of VALA Libraries Technology in the Future, vice president of Linux Australia, and co-founder of the Everything Open Conference in Australia, advocating for open source systems and digital accessibility. She is going to talk a little bit about the collaboration and shared infrastructure of the CAVAL setup down in Australia. So I will turn it over now to Sae Ra.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me. And apologies for my really croaky voice. I've got the lovely, sexy phone voice on because I'm coming just off the end of a COVID bout. So please bear with me today. So I'm just going to share my screen. Can everyone see that?
Yes, we've got it.
Perfect. Thanks, James. Thank you, everyone, for having me, and thank you so much for having your meeting later in the afternoon just to be able to accommodate us in our little corner of the world at a different time of the day and in the future, I would like to say. And especially thanks to James and Clara for the invite. It's not every day that an Australian gets to talk about our little corner of the world, and I immediately had to say yes to this. And I wanted to also give a shout out to the fellow Aussie, Julia Hickey, who's one of the big dreamers for this project, who's also joined us today. I'm really only giving you a view of a third of this implementation team. And this is really coming from the CAVAL perspective, so I thought I'd just give you a bit of a story here. So what I'll try to cover today is CAVAL Are we a library, a vendor, a consortium, a not-for-profit? Who are we really? The tender process, the holy hell, we got it, now what? Support, how it looks like, and the aftermath of after pressing the big red go live button. But first, to say g'day or hello in the native language of the Wurundjeri people, they say Wominjeka. Wominjeka means, what is your purpose? And as I reflect on the many lands that I've been privileged to work on today, my purpose here is to actually share and tell a story. I can't do this without acknowledging the lands that I'm currently beaming to you from, which is the Wadawurrung, Wurundjeri, and Djadjawurrung peoples of the Kulin Nations, where I live, learn, and work. I acknowledge and celebrate the inherent strengths of Aboriginal, Torres Strait Islander, and other First Nations peoples and their communities, and recognise their continuing connections to land, waters, sky, and culture. I pay my respects to their elders past and present, and would like to extend that respect to any First Nations peoples joining us today. Sovereignty was never ceded, and I always want to acknowledge that this always was, always will be, Aboriginal land. So as James said, I'm Deputy CEO of CAVAL. I'm the lead of the Member and Academic Services team at CAVAL, and the digital and sort of looks after the digital platforms, shared collection, and member capability building areas there as well. I'm also a bit of an open source fanatic, so this project was right up my alley. And I come from here, Australia, a country that is usually forgotten about, but only remembered when it's about the deathly things that are trying to kill you every day. A country that is relatively disconnected from the rest of the world, and a country that doesn't tend to be heard by library system vendors. I was also sharing with the product committee, the ReShare product community the other day, that our votes don't tend to mean anything, and what this means that we get told what our advancements are. We don't really or rarely get to actually shape what we would like our systems to look like. So with CAVAL, we were established in 1978. CAVAL is a consortium owned by some of the most prestigious Australian universities. Over the past 40 years, CAVAL has expanded and diversified to become an organisation working with national and international scale projects, but one which retains its core commitment to providing the benefit through collaboration. CAVAL has over 40 full-time staff members, and most of them speak up to 2 or 3 languages. CAVAL is a structured not-for-profit company limited by guarantee and is owned by the 8 Australian libraries that are listed here. We are governed by a regular board of directors in terms of the Corporations Act in Australia. So one of our key highlights at CAVAL is that we support collaboration through different types of services, and that includes being support services for interlibrary loan software for the last 20-ish years. We also provide capability building opportunities through collaboration and professional development and networking programs, principally through the CAVAL interest groups and the management of our cross-institutional mentoring program. We also provide collection management services where we provide the storage and preservation of library materials for both our members and non-members. We also supply shelf-ready processing for languages other than English in over 50 languages in Australia and New Zealand. This includes cataloguing, book covering, anything that requires shelf-ready for our public libraries in Australia. There's approximately 109,000 items delivered in the last 12 months in all these different languages, just so that public libraries can provide languages other than English to their public. We also supply English language teaching resources and Australian published materials. We also have a deep history in supporting other software services, such as the Journal Usage Statistics Portal and the Institutional Repository Usage Statistics Portal through JISC. We've also recently started providing skill type platform services as well. We also house this, our own collection. This is the CAVAL Archival and Research Materials, or we fondly call CARM, shared collection, which has approximately 850,000 print volumes on behalf of our members. This unique collection is a last copy print facility that was built to preserve items that are considered to be of research importance. Now, Peter, who I think is on the call, is going to kill me for this slide because this was a very long time ago and he's kept his face, but I've seemingly got a bit older. CAVAL's first interaction with index data was in 2017 when I gave a talk alongside Peter Murray about the power of open source, the community, and Folio. Peter's passion for open source and his message about values and community-driven development closely aligned with my personal values. Fast forward to 2021 and 2022, where CAVAL was doing a review of the library management platform. We celebrated its 21st birthday, but we quickly realized that it was time that we needed a new system that we can help influence and develop. It also needed a thriving community and something that was open and transparent and was looking to the future and was able for organizations such as One in Australia to help develop. CAVAL also wanted to represent Australia's unique environment and views and development and platforms that drive our services. CAVAL has found sometimes, as I've mentioned before, that our voice is lost in competition to the voices of the US market. Open source provides us with the opportunity, and it was logical that Folio was in our sights. Index data and CAVAL hit it off straight away, and our cultural fit as a vendor/partner for us was crucial, and the values that index data have displayed over the years is exactly how open source providers should be. There is no question that the first meeting that was with index data was who we wanted to work with. And thus we became the first library to go live with Folio in Australia. So fast forward a little bit after we had gone live with Folio, there was this request for expressions of interest released by Trove. Trove is an organization that was set up as part of the National Library of Australia. And, excuse me, gave us the opportunity to provide an answer to what ReShare is, who we are, and what we are doing in this space. And that was way back in May 2023. The request for tender then opened in September 2023, and in May 2024, it was announced. Today's phase, which I fondly call 2.75 because we're not quite there to 3 yet, is went live in May 2025. So ReShare and the vision that we had provided to the National Library and Trove was for a decentralized resource sharing network. The Trove folks wanted to make sure that we used and harnessed the capabilities and the amazingness that is the Australian National Bibliographic Database, which is the Trove catalogue, instead of a shared repository that ReShare was providing. We wanted to provide different ways that ReShare could be stretched in its capabilities. There was the shared inventory, which was the AMBD, which is the Trove catalogue in the center here. And then we wanted to provide other different types of networks that could actually contribute to the conversation. There was also the concept of different library systems and interoperability occurring as well. And this vision was to actually replace what was currently in place for over 20 years, which allowed for a national resource sharing infrastructure project. So the concept of networks, which was developed by Trove, was that we had the idea of the library. The library is the ones that are doing the requesting and the responding, and as a member of one or more networks. They are able to set the network priority and enroll into different Trove service tiers. The network is a group of libraries, facilitated, targeted searching and sharing is available through this group. It contains many libraries and there is no limit to the membership size. And then we've got the National Trove Resource Sharing Network. And from here, you can easily see that the group can either grow or shrink, and requests can move from network to network, from different types of requests to different types of requests, and also amongst each other in the national network as well. So as an example, if you're a university library, you can be part of 3 networks, which is the network of higher education, the CAVAL member, or the national network. You could also, or you could be a public library, which could be a member of the Metro Publics, because we're such a large country, we had to actually split between metro and regional, and also between the states. So you can actually see that we've created one for statewide publics as well. You could also be a health library, and there's different health library networks as well. But you could also join the higher education network. So this concept of moving between networks allows for better distribution of requests, but it also allows for the library to manage the load that they need to by joining only the networks that they deem as being able to fill the requests that they need to. So the business rules were developed by Trove, and there's some key features of the business rules that we needed to follow. And that was making sure that things were available via Trove Search, which is through the Australian National Bibliographic Database. And requesting needed to be done either via ReShare or through ISO 18626. And it was made sure that we had to make sure that the communications between systems and interoperability had to be done through ISO standards. From day one, returnables and non-returnables were available. And so we are able to provide copy requests through the repository Haiku and for short-term and quick non-returnable digital delivery. We also had to provide through the Trove service tier. So we've obviously got here what's called the reciprocal network, so that there is 0 charge requesting between the requests. And then there's pay for peer, which is paying for each request because some libraries aren't able to provide interlibrary loans at a free rate, but they are able to do a cost recovery. There is also going to be eventually a public pays opportunity where the public is able to request directly from a library if they want to do so. We also need to adhere by the Australian Interlibrary Resource Sharing Code, the ILRS code that we fondly call it, which provides supplying principles, service levels of Core, Russian Express, which I think is the equivalent of Standard and a couple of others in the US, and obviously pricing, because we have a set price in Australia. What is a different done 3 different types of stakeholders, and technically there's 4 because we've got the libraries that are in the system as well. So Trove, which is our biggest stakeholder, has the institutional knowledge, they have the workflow knowledge, they are the ones that own the contract and make sure that we deliver what we promised that we would deliver. And they're the ones that are communicating with all of the libraries, including they have a working group and they run all of the partner polls and questionnaires and run frequent Q&A sessions with the members as well. CAVAL is sandwiched in the middle there, but I'll quickly talk about Index Data, who are the developers, obviously, and the hosts who bring their wealth of international knowledge and developer knowledge as well. But CAVAL here, we're sort of, as I mentioned, sandwiched in the middle, where we also bring our institutional knowledge, but we're a sounding board to actually be the translator between the Trove Resource Sharing Group and Index Data. There is lots of terminologies that don't quite make sense between the 2 countries, And we try to make sure that we're in the middle to translate anything that comes across. And also we want to make sure that we provide the Australian voice into different areas of ReShare. So I'm also part of the product committee as well. So go live date, 280 libraries went live on the 12th of May, 2025 over the course of 2 weeks. It was a beautiful and sunny morning at the National Library, which is just here. And you can see here the login screen for the libraries. And this was the small group that got together on the Monday morning to go live. So it turns out pressing a single button for many go lives is actually quite a nerve-wracking thing. And poor Izzy, who's sitting up the front here, had to be the one pressing the button. So we were sitting there contemplating and waiting. This was a group photo that we took day 2, and clearly we were very much bubbly, but wanted to try and get our index data folks in the photo as well. Unfortunately, we couldn't get everyone in the photo, but we managed to get as many as possible. So what is next? As I mentioned, ISO 18626 interoperability is crucial to making this system a success, and we're currently in testing with Alma and Rapido libraries. We have Pay for Peer next, and the public pays is coming up in the future as well. The one thing I did want to highlight was a big successful day for us when we could actually send emojis between the Trove ReShare system and with Alan at New School in his Alma system, where we've got the smiley faces going on. So that's actually quite an exciting day for us to be able to send emojis through. And with that, I just wanted to thank everyone. And as I said, this is only 1/3 of the view of going live with the system. And it's actually such a great and exciting and fun project that we were all part of. So I wanted to thank everyone that was part of it. I can't name everyone because there was so many people, but thank you to all that contributed to this project. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Sarah, for that presentation. It's great to see CAVAL getting that online with everybody. I've been myself through a couple different implementations, so I can, and a number of us on this call can relate to exactly how stressful pushing that digital button could be. So yeah, lots of commiserations and congratulations on seeing the other side of that. So we've got about 15 minutes left. We want to open the space up for questions. Of course, we've got Rachel and Kyle from Minitex. We've got Sarah from CAVAL. We've also got myself and Gerri and Boaz on the call still, if you have any questions about the committees that we're currently seeking membership for. So if you've got a question, you can raise your hand and I'll call on you and unmute you, or you can put it in chat and we'll go through those. Already, we've got one in chat from Jill Morris, and this one is for Sarah. What kind of resource sharing volume do you anticipate Australian libraries will manage through ReShare?
Oh, that is a very good question. It might be one that I might palm off to Julia, but thousands, hopefully, thousands and thousands.
Yeah, I can chip in. I wasn't planning to. Before we went to ReShare, we were doing about 50,000 a year. We expect that will continue. An interesting thing during this process, resource sharing is in long-term decline in Australia, and we did consider not running a service anymore. But the community was so adamant that it's fundamental to the library profession that we've ended up where we are. So yeah, 30 to 50,000 this year, I reckon.
Excellent. Thank you, Sarah. And thank you, Julia, for that cameo answer. From Gerri, And this one is probably for Sarah, but also I know that we've got some other folks that might be able to speak a little bit about this as well. So we'll start with Sarah. Can you talk a bit about the upcoming Alma and Rapido integration?
Yeah, I can give a brief overview. So, Alma and Rapido libraries are able to send through requests to the ReShare broker, and then the broker will distribute the request to the ReShare libraries, and the other way around as well. So, Alma and Rapido libraries can manage their full requesting workflow and supplying workflow through Alma rather than having to go into ReShare. Hopefully that answers your question, Gerri.
All right, one more question from one of our other presenters, from Kyle. Also to Sarah. What is the general breakdown of public and academic libraries in your system? Since you mentioned that the academic libraries are the owners of CAVAL.
So generally, there's about 48 academic libraries in Australia, well, different systems in Australia. And then there are about 300 libraries all up that are publics and specials. So they kind of, there's more publics and specials than academics.
All right. Oh, just we got one more question. Another question coming in from Jill Moore's for Minitex. So to Rachel and Kyle, can you share a bit more about what it's like to trade requests between different types of libraries? What are you hoping to see next from ReShare?
So I'm not sure if you want to answer that.
Maybe Gerri wants to answer what she's hoping to see next from ReShare. But your first question about sharing a bit more about what it's like to trade requests between different types of libraries. You know, we've been doing it for so long. And so the only thing that really changed, see, Minitex is still handling those initial requests that come in through ReShare. So the only thing that really changed is the fact that we're not filling those requests. We're actually sending the request through still. We're creating the cluster IDs, we're adding all the cluster IDs, and we're sending it. We're just not filling it. And that's been a change that, you know, we used to get a lot of material coming through. And so that's been a change that we're adjusting to. But Gerri, what are you hoping to see next from ReShare?
Yeah, and I'm also going to just jump on your answer a little bit about MinLink. One of our biggest brokering relationships was actually MinLink to MinLink before this happened. So there were a ton of requests that Minitex would see. They could be filled by a MinLink library, but they couldn't be filled natively in the application. So it was a huge change for us to now be able to BIB transfer those. Obviously, my question earlier kind of answers this, and I'm just looking forward to a better integration and communication between ReShare and Alma libraries. And that's just tippy top of my list of things that I want to happen. And right now, Minitex is waiting on a Alma update. And we are hoping with that next Alma update that we'll be able to more easily exchange requests. But right now we're doing brokering between ReShare libraries and Alma libraries. So fingers crossed that we'll be able to get that working.
Yeah, and I can add just a little bit more onto that first part. I deal a lot with the patrons that participate in MinLink, and one of the big things is that MinLink, it's not just public libraries to public libraries. I found on this whenever people bring it up. Minitex, MinLink requests will come to Minitex, even if all those public libraries don't have it. And then we will then send that request to the academic libraries in the state. We'll send it to Wisconsin public and academic libraries, some libraries in North and South Dakota. So it's actually a really awesome system for public libraries because unlike academic libraries, they don't have a rich network of systems to refer the requests to. So it's great for us.
Awesome. Thank you, Minitex, all of our Minitex colleagues, for answering that question. We've got another question for Minitex in the chat now. It's from Rebecca Purnell. Is ReShare the exclusive ILL software used across the member libraries? If not, what percentage of overall sharing is done on Minitex and on the ReShare network specifically?
So at Minitex, we are using several different ILL systems. ReShare is one of them. We also use OCLC WorldShare. We use a Wisconsin interlibrary loan system. We use the ALMA system. And so the percentage, I'm not good with the numbers. That is probably something that Gerri could answer.
You know, that's a great question, Rebecca. I don't think we usually don't think of it like that. Minlink is different from Minitex in that it's the one system that we manage. So we have the contract and we provide the service. And so we've never done that. We've never said how much traffic is on Minlink versus traffic and other things. Rebecca, you might find this interesting, and that is that for some of our public libraries, this is the only resource sharing that they do is through Minlink. But there are others who do other resource sharing. They might do resource sharing on OCLC, or they might do other sorts of resource sharing locally. But for some of our public libraries, Minlink is their only option.
Gerri, with Minlink, then Minlink is exclusively on ReShare, right?
It is.
So there are some public libraries where all of their ILL returnables are done on ReShare.
Yes.
And then are they using something else for digital delivery?
So we actually do digital delivery on ReShare. It's a fairly lightweight implementation, but people can and do request articles and book chapters on Minlink. It's somewhat manual. And it's never been a huge part of that system, but it's there and it works and people are using it.
Thanks.
Excellent. One comment from Alan Jones in the chat, letting us know that the ALMA update for ReShare ISO 1866 is in the July 2025 release. This would allow a library to connect directly to a ReShare library, but doesn't perform load balancing. Something like Crosslink allows load balancing between partners through brokering. Crosslink project currently being worked on by our new ReShare partners at IDS, and hopefully the subject of a future community meeting and presentation. So thank you for that comment, Alan. And another question about BibTransfer, and this might need to put on a little bit of my product committee hat, and we might need to get some index data folks into this, because this is an interesting question about BibTransfer. Could the cluster bib IDs staff identify and provide be fed back into the index so that those bib IDs could be clustered together in the future?
I'll take that one here. So it's kind of a two-pronged issue. The one side is the public library's cataloging, and that is something we are actively working. I don't know if Nick is here, but he is actively working with our public library to resolve some of the reasons why they don't cluster together. The second reason it doesn't work all the time is because of the algorithms that's used to match. And we have been investigating that since our initial implementation to see if there are ways they can be improved, changed. We can't see those back really in. It's not like a manual thing that they will fix in the shared index. It's something that our libraries will probably need to change, or the matching algorithm itself would need to change. And then if the libraries change it, they would re-ingest their records, and hopefully the match would happen there.
Yeah, thank you for that answer, Kyle. Yeah, there's all these things are algorithm based, and they're only as good as the data that's coming into them. And we can figure out, we can identify where a difference happens, but then it takes some fun investigation processes to figure out exactly what the cause of that difference was. Maybe there's some automation to be had as far as being able to flag those things to at least help libraries identify where changes might be able to be made. But ultimately, I think it would have to result in either changing the algorithms for how this stuff is matched, which, as somebody who's been part of ReShare and these conversations for a while, I think every couple of years we have conversations that bubble up as far as what the matching algorithm ought to be, because the first one that matches everything correct, the next one I see that matches everything correctly will be the first. And like, our records, especially for institutions that have been around for a while, records go back so far, and it can be kind of finding a needle in a haystack to figure out exactly why something might be clustering in a different fashion. But maybe there's opportunities there for at least flagging and identifying those to make it easier for libraries to make those changes on their ends. With my product committee hat on, maybe that's potential for like a future enhancement or something to investigate down the road. Yeah, and Alan Jones commenting on that if it works for music, it will work for everything. Yep, if we can get music and scores to work out, then I think that means that we've solved it. But that's easier said than done, brother. Easier said than done. All right, we are at 4:59. So I want to be mindful of everybody's time. I want to be mindful of our presenters. If we've got maybe one more quick question, we might be able to fit it in. But seeing nothing, and we've had really good discussion so far. So again, I want to give a big thank you to Rachel and Kyle and Sarah for presenting about what's going on at Minitex and CAVAL. I want to give a big thank you to Gerri and Boaz and Charlie for saying a little bit about what's going on in our Project ReShare community. Be on the lookout and feel free to reach out to any of us if you are interested in serving on either the new Community Engagement Committee or the Communications Committee. We will, after we get this recording processed, and thank you, Boaz. Reminder that anybody who's going to be in Philly, my adopted hometown, this week for ALA, we are having at noon local time on Sunday a ReShare meetup at the lobby bar of the Sofitel hotel in Philadelphia. Open to anybody who is who's available and interested in coming. We will get this recording up on YouTube here in the next day or two, and we'll put a link to that on our Project ReShare website, so that folks can take a look at that if they missed anything, or if you have any colleagues who weren't able to attend. No need to register. That recording's not going to be locked behind anything, so that's going to be available for folks to share afterwards. Again, big thank you to everybody who presented. Big thank you to everybody who showed up today. For all of my colleagues on the East Coast, please do your best to stay cool. And thank you so much for your continued support of ReShare. We will all see you soon. Have a lovely rest of your day, everyone.